Tonight's onside is Up to Speed. Quick off the line, Peter Schmeichel. Fast cars with Jenson Button. Fast talk, Murray Walker. Fast forward, Lawrence Dallaglio. It's the Fast Show. Onside. So it was Manchester United 2, Real Madrid 3. I wonder what Peter Schmeichel made of all that. We'll hear in a few minutes' time. And Lawrence Dallaglio has actually been playing tonight, so we'll see what shape his body's in a bit later on. But first of all, proof positive that if you give a young man a fast car, he'll simply drive it too quickly. Formula One's newest and youngest star, Jenson Button. So here you are at the age of 20, the youngest ever British Grand Prix driver in history. Are you conscious of making history?
Conscious of making history? It's a difficult one. It's been a good year for me so far. Being involved with one of the best teams in Formula One, I think that's been the best thing for me, being involved in such a good environment and also being part of Formula One more than making history to me.
Just how exciting is it? Is it as exciting as you thought it was going to be?
Oh, definitely. It's been amazing. Obviously, I used to watch Formula One since I was 6 or 7 years old, but actually being a part of it is so different. It's a
what
great
is the
atmosphere.
single most exciting thing about being a Formula One driver at your age?
It's probably
is it the
actually
women?
driving the car, actually. I would say the women, but I can't. Frank won't be happy.
But there's so much glamour about the sport, isn't there? There's so much pizzazz. Does it lure you in? Is it impossible to stand back from that?
I think when you're with the team, you're concentrating with the engineers and the team owners on doing the best job for everyone, the team, and yourself. You really do concentrate on the job in hand, driving the car and working with the team. But as soon as you get away from the car, when the race is over, it's completely different. There is a lot of glamour involved and press interviews and everything, but it's really good fun, and I've really enjoyed it so far.
You mentioned that you watched Formula One from the age of 6 and 7, and inevitably with people who achieve success at a young age, the parents are crucial figures in that, driven by their parents without meaning that to be a pun. And you look at someone like Martina Hingis, named Martina after Martina Navratilova, you know, no pressure there. And even though people are under the misapprehension that you were actually named after a car when you weren't, but you have a jazzy name and your dad was a rally driver, did he always envisage you being a driver, do you think?
I think so, because he had 3 daughters before me, so I think when I was born he thought, yep, he's going to be a racing driver, and gave me a strange name, which I got a lot of flack for at school. But no, he's been a very big help over the last few years in racing. Since I was 8 when I started in racing, he's always been there in there helping me, and now it's good for him to be able to watch him in Formula One.
At what age did you start thinking, actually, this is what I want to do?
It was probably about 13, 14. I started racing go-karts abroad in Europe, mostly in Italy and Belgium. And I thought, I can be a Formula One driver. That's what I'm going to aim to do and commit myself to.
And as the years went by and you graduated through the various grades of the sport, at what point did somebody say to you, actually, you've got it? Because you must have it, because otherwise you wouldn't be in the position you are now.
Last week, I think it was. Frank.
Really? I mean, at any stage have you felt, all the way on, that almost like it was destiny, like you've been driven towards
not really. I've tried very, very hard over the last years getting to where I am now, and choosing between school when I was 16 after my GCSEs, either going to school or carrying on with my racing, was a very difficult choice, but I've always wanted to be a Formula One driver, but when I was very young, I didn't expect to be here, but here we are now.
So when the contract was offered, and suddenly that dream was almost a reality, have you had to pinch yourself subsequently and thought, here I am, and I'm actually doing it? Because you're doing what every 20-year-old almost man wants to do: drive fast cars and be a Formula One driver.
Some women do as well.
Well, maybe they do, yeah. Well, maybe we'll ask Murray about that, actually. Why aren't there any Formula One racing drivers who are women? There's a good question for later. But
Definitely.
anyway, how do you feel about the whole thing?
It's a difficult one. No, it is amazing being part of the whole thing in Formula One. And yeah, a lot of people do want to be, I think, a Formula One driver. And before I got there, it was like, wow, Formula One drivers, they're robots, they're completely different to all us human beings, but they're not. I'm the same person I was 3 months ago, and I still try to do the same things. Obviously, I don't get much free time, but I still try and do the same things, and I'm still the same person.
Whose pictures did you have on your bedroom wall? Were you a Senna fan?
Racing?
Yeah.
You mean racing-wise?
Well, yes, we'll come on to the women later. Apart from Sam Fox, who did you have?
Sam Fox. Ed and Senna in the early 90s. And ever since, it's probably been Michael Schumacher. Not just for winning the World Championships 2 times in a row, but also he's just been amazing over the last few years. I don't think he's had the car to win the World Championship, but he's tried very, very hard. He just hasn't been able to, but I'm sure this year is the year.
I remember talking to Michael Owen, and he said, he had pictures of Paul Gascoigne on his wall. And then suddenly, a few years later, there he was playing alongside him. Are there sometimes you think, I can't believe this, here I am on the grid, and Michael Schumacher's just over there?
Well, I haven't actually raced with him yet. He's lapped me once, which I saw in the mirrors, but I had to have a pit stops. But no, it is amazing racing with him. And funny as it may seem, I actually got his autograph in Brazil. Got someone to get his autograph for me, and I've actually got it framed on the wall.
Really? Well, they went up and said, could you sign it to my friend Jenson?
Yeah, to my friend Jenson. So. Yeah.
Having achieved so much in such a short time, everybody, in a sense, take each game as it comes, take each race as it comes. But do you look beyond that? If you harbour these ambitions for so many years, can you see the day, do you envisage the day when you are the world champion?
I've obviously thought about it, but at the moment I'm concentrating on this year. This year is a very important year, and also I'm going to learn a lot this year. So it's more concentrating on this year first, hopefully get a few good results and actually learn the circuits will be a good start. And hopefully in 3 or 4 years be on the same level as Michael has been now. How
different is it driving a Formula One car to driving, your ordinary bog standard car on the A34? Because I mean, let's face it, the funniest thing about it is that, of course, you're able to drive in some Grand Prix, and actually you're not able to hire a car and drive on the roads of an awful lot of the countries like Belgium, Australia, where you're actually competing. It must seem extraordinary. But what is it? What are the forces that you're subject to when you're in that cockpit and driving in a Grand Prix?
Well, the car, to start with, 0 to 60 does it in about 3 seconds, just under 3 seconds. And then from 60 to 200 is an unbelievably short time. Don't exactly know the figures, but the G-force is outrageous. Not just the cornering G-force, but also the braking G-force. It's about 4.2, 4.3 on braking. So you do have to work up the odd neck muscles, and that's what I've been doing a lot over the winter.
Do you get frightened?
Only about losing, I think. You don't really get frightened about dangers or anything.
I must ask you, did you ever think one day Murray Walker would be saying, and there goes Button?
There goes Button. Yeah.
Because everybody in motor racing can do a Murray Walker impression, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. There was a good one in Australia, actually, that everyone remembers. It's, hear this, Michael Schumacher's in the lead and Jenson Button's fourth. Everyone takes a mick out of him for that one. Definitely a good one, that. Yeah. Town crier.
well, talking of Murray Walker, we're going to move from the newest model on the track to a vintage number that still is going like the clappers.
Oh, John Welch is now he's getting aboard, and now that's it, bang, bang, and off! Oh dear, to put it very mildly indeed. 3 escorts, first, second and third. Not surprisingly, because they're all escorts in this race. Pete Dam wins, looks through a completely clean windscreen, and that's the big advantage, of course, of being in front. And that's the big disadvantage of getting your line wrong. Now, for real spectacular driving, watch this. And
Nigel, first of all, will you carefully and slowly take your hat off? You've got an enormous bump on your head. Can you let them see it?
I don't know whether...
Right up there. Oh, I'm sorry.
And now, as the race starts, my regrets, we must leave Brands Hatch. Join us again at 4:45.
The unmistakable voice of Formula One, Murray Walker.
All lies, John.
Is it? He asked a question, actually, so I'll ask it for him, or we tossed it into the equation. Why aren't there any women Formula One drivers anymore?
They're not good enough. So
Would you like to expand on that a little bit?
I think I better. Most women are not as aggressive as most men. A lot are, yeah, but most aren't. There's nothing to stop a woman going into karts like Jenson did, doing well, going to Formula Ford like Jenson did, doing well, working her way up through the disciplines and getting into Formula One. And if any woman got into Formula One, the sponsors would be falling over themselves to throw money at her. But they're not aggressive enough in general, and most women lack the upper body strength that you need in Formula One, right?
Sure.
Which is what you were alluding to a few moments ago about neck muscles.
Yeah, you've got to be.
So do you ever see the day when a woman is, on pole for a Grand Prix?
Well, the simple answer to the direct question is no. I mean, but stranger things have happened. Not much, but stranger things have happened.
We showed all those little funnies that maybe you do get heartily sick of, but maybe you don't. Maybe you're sort of, in a funny kind of way, quite proud of them. Because the reason why you're loved by the nation is that you have shown your fallible...
Because I cock it up.
And, well, you do now and again. But is there one that's your sort of least favourite or your most favourite, but which people are always throwing back at you?
The car in front is absolutely unique, except for the one behind it, which is identical. Tombé's hopes, which were previously nil, are now absolutely zero. And now Lafitte is as close to Sura as Sura is to Lafitte. Think about it.
I hadn't realised that motorcycling was your first love, wasn't it? Because your dad was a champion man on a bike.
Yeah, I was born into motorsport. My father raced motorcycles professionally at the very highest level. He won the TT, he would have been world champion in 1928 if there had been world championships as there are now. And I did a bit of motorcycle racing after the war when I came out of the army. And I had the fond illusion, John, that I could show my dad how to do it, the way sons do. And I very rapidly found out that my father was considerably better than I would ever be. And you know what happens? Those that can, do, and those that can't, talk about it. And so I started talking about it.
We've got a lovely photo here, actually, of you and your dad. I think you're age 7 here, Murray.
Oh, yeah.
But actually, you say that, but your father was a commentator as well. You did a double act, didn't you?
My father was Murray Walker at Northfield School, that was. My father was the editor of a magazine, and he was brilliant with words, and he started commentating for the BBC at things like the TT and the Ulster Grand Prix. And when I decided that I wasn't right for it, I started broadcasting. And from 1949 until 1962, when he died, we were the BBC's, and as far as I know, anybody's only father and son commentary team.
Talking about fathers and sons, actually, of course, you commentated on his dad.
Yeah, I've talked. It makes me realise how old I am, because I've commentated on Jenson's dad, John, racing VW Beetles at Lyddon, and very well too. I can see where he gets his ability from, because his dad was very quick.
We'll talk about his potential in a moment. But there's one other thing about your life which it always intrigues me. Like when I read about it, I think, no, not really. That while you were doing your commentating, you were still you had a proper job as well in the advertising industry.
Yeah.
And you are partly responsible, because it was a team job, for the phrases, miles a day helps you work, rest and play. And perhaps more significantly, Trill makes budgies bounce with health. Do you feel you've made a lasting mark on Western culture?
Yes, I do, actually. Not many people know that an only budgie is a lonely budgie. And
How good is he?
Jenson, he's very good indeed. I mean, if I may spare his blushes, you don't win as many kart races as he's done. You certainly don't win the British Formula Ford Championship, and more importantly, win the Formula Ford Festival, which is in effect the World Championship of Formula Ford, in your first year, unless you're very good. You don't go on and do as well as he did in his first year in Formula 3. And then he had this test with McLaren, he had a test with Prost. Prost very much wanted him to join. And you don't get into Frank Williams' team when you think of the people who've been there, Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna, unless you are extremely good. And Jenson has been matching Ralf Schumacher, Michael Schumacher's brother, 10th of a second for 10th of a second, and out-qualified him in Brazil.
Sure. You spend a lot of your time in commentary boxes these days with Martin Brundle. And Martin Brundle did say that he felt that Jenson was getting his chance 3 years too soon. I'll ask you what you think of that in a moment, but when you heard that, and Mika Sala also was saying that he had grave reservations about you getting your chance at such an early age, does that drive you on, in a sense, to prove them wrong?
Definitely, it really does. It is very difficult for people to judge the way I am in a car, or even as a person. They don't know me as a person, or I shouldn't think they've seen me drive that often. So it's very, very difficult. I think it was better for them to wait until they saw me actually drive on the circuit first.
Sure. I had to write this down, actually, because I hadn't heard of a couple of them. But the only other drivers who were younger than you were Mike Thackwell, Ricardo Rodriguez, Esteban Tuero, and Chris Amon, none of whom really sort of made a huge impression on the sport over the years. Is that, in a sense, another incentive for you, or does it make you think, well, maybe I have got, maybe I should have waited 12 months?
I don't think so, because in Brazil I'm the youngest driver to score a point in Brazil. I was, so that was an amazing weekend for me. It was not just only a good race, but to get a point was fabulous for me. Such a great feeling.
Sure.
And hopefully we can.
Is it the old thing that, if you're good enough, you're young enough kind of thing, do you think, for him?
Yeah, I think so. I must smugly point out that, unlike my co-commentator, I didn't say I thought he was three years too early, because you never know, John, until they've actually done it. You never know. And there are people who've come in young, like Jenson, and done very well. Not many of them as young as Jenson. Chris Amon, who you just mentioned, was just a terribly unlucky guy. He should have won Grand Prix after Grand Prix, and the chips never fell the right way for him.
Talk about winning Grand Prix. Grand Prix weekend, of course, at Silverstone. Oh, not at Silverstone, sorry. It's no faux pas there. But who's going to win this weekend? Is it inevitable that Schumacher's going to win?
No. I would say, in all honesty, that this year, I don't know if you agree, but I think McLaren have lost Grand Prix rather than Ferrari have won them, which Ferrari enthusiasts will think is a pretty outrageous thing to say. But Mika Häkkinen has actually led every Grand Prix. He had engine problems in the first two, and he finished second in the third one. He could well have won all three of them. And if I had to put money on somebody to win the British Grand Prix, because I think it's very unlikely that someone's going to win 4 in a row, I would put it on Mika Häkkinen, which is a pretty good reason not to put it on Mika Häkkinen.
So I think Michael.
Yes? Do you think so too?
Michael, I think.
Yeah. Oh, you think Michael? Oh, right. We'll see.
A couple of final points. Can he be world champion?
Can who? Jenson? Well,
Does the paycheck come through?
Yeah. I mean, yes, all things are possible, but Jenson, he knows himself, is at the bottom of a gigantically steep climb. He's obviously got the ability, but you need a hell of a lot more than the ability to drive a car fast to do Formula One. You need to be a very rounded individual, and he's got to get an enormous amount of experience, and the only way you get experience is to do it. So, but yes, in principle, he can be.
And he's got 5 years to win a world championship. And if he manages it during that time, he will be the youngest ever world champion. Will you still be commentating in 5 years' time when he does it?
I don't know. I mean, at my age, I'm obviously nearer the end of my career than the beginning, but I love doing it, and there are three things you've got to have to do my job. One is enthusiasm. God knows I've got that. The other is the physical ability to just do the flying and all the rushing about you do at the meeting. The third thing you've got to have is the mental ability to keep up with it. I have at the moment, but how much longer I'm going to have, I don't want to stop, but I'm mortal and I'll have to stop sometime.
Walker, I carry on. Well, he'll certainly be at Silverstone this weekend. And as final point to you, Jenson, because I'm sure a lot of people who maybe didn't know much about you before this evening will look at you and say, I like that guy, I hope he does really well.
Yeah.
What are you setting out your ambition to be for this weekend?
This weekend? It would be nice to finish. Again, every mile under my belt is good for experience. Also, the long distances are good for your fitness-wise. But then again, it would be good to get a point, but we'll see what happens. I think the main thing for us is to gain experience on the engine side, the car side, and also myself.
Yeah. And keep a level head and all that sort of stuff. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank
Murray
you, Tom.
Walker, Jenson Button.
Thank you.